I will post it in the chat room. So if you have any. All right, so I see some of you say you have a worksheet. All right, that's good. So let's continue with that. So the first, actually, I started with doing some programming actually in web design. So my first website was done in 2003. At that time, it was a very long time ago. The most advanced computer you have is Windows XP. And at that time, 50 kilobytes per second is the fastest internet speed you have. Now it's very different. So my first time I joined a website design competition. So you can see this is actually me right here. And I joined the Scouts. This is actually organized by the Malaysian Scouts Association. And this was the first time I actually did some programming and engineering, which actually gave me the interest to continue studying in engineering. So this guy here is Wayne. He is now a software engineer in Amazon in the United States. So we have ended up pretty far away from each other. I see most of you guys are university students probably, maybe a few lecturers and so on. But just to share my university life, firstly, I was very honored to be invited to visit the Shell offshore platform of Sabah. I joined the National Chemical Engineering Symposium. I helped to develop an app. I launched a 24-hour hackathon, international conference, and some Chinese literature competition because I'm Chinese. Yeah. So one of the things that made me interested in what is IoT, Industry Revolution 4.0, was when I was invited to launch this app called UniChat. You can find on Google Play Store and Apple App Store, where we have about 10,000 downloads. And it's actually an app for university students to connect with each other. But unfortunately, it's only available in Malaysia. Maybe we'll launch an Indonesian version soon. So what do I do now? So currently, I'm working as a part-time advisor for the Regional Chemical Engineering Undergraduate Conference. So it's basically a conference for mostly final year students. And I run a Facebook group where I share things about chemical engineering and Industrial Revolution 4.0. And I also usually post things on my LinkedIn profile about Python and VBA. So if you're interested, you can look more after this session. But let's come back to the main topic today and ask, what is Microsoft Excel? So this is Microsoft Excel. You probably know what's it by now, so I'll not talk too much about what is Microsoft Excel. So it's a spreadsheet program developed by Microsoft. It's one of the reasons why Bill Gates is a millionaire today, because Microsoft Excel is obviously a very successful software, and I believe most of you have this software. So if you are not using Microsoft Excel, you are using OpenOffice, some of the features might be different. So if you have Microsoft Excel, I recommend that you open it now. So I'm going to show you a few things later on. So a few common myths before we start. So this is a TV show Mythbusters, which I really like to watch all the time. And I'm going to show a few myths and I tell you why they are wrong. So the first is that there's a common perception that Excel is only for accountants, mathematicians, and so on. But the fact is that engineers do use Excel every day. The next is programming is only for computer science students. But the fact is that nowadays, many engineers do use programming. Programming is only for nerds. The fact is, as long as you know how to use a computer or a phone, which I'm sure all of you know, you can be a programmer. And you need special software for programming. It's difficult to learn, not necessarily, because you can do programming in Excel, Notepad, and Word, etc. So today we'll be focusing on Excel, but perhaps if you have some more time, we can talk about how you can do programming in Microsoft Word, how you can do programming using Notepad. It's actually very easy once you get used to it. So I think by now there are probably quite a few programming languages that we often hear about. So we have Python and C++. These are the traditional so-called programming languages. R and Spark are new languages which are usually for data science and machine learning. MATLAB and Octave are specialized engineering software. I think you use MATLAB during your chemical engineering calculations, I believe. Java and JavaScript are for app development. HTML and XML are for web design, and technically they are not a real programming language. They are what we call a markup language, which is a subset of programming. So where's VBA? So you might be curious, but from the name here, VBA, you probably can guess where does VBA fit into the picture. So VBA is actually a type of Visual Basic. It's actually part of Visual Basic. So Visual Basic for Applications is the full name. It's derived from Visual Basic. It's integrated into Microsoft Office apps, which means Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Access, and all the other Microsoft software. It allows for user-defined functions. So this is the strongest function of this Visual Basic, and that's what I'm going to show you later. And if you have some programming background, you might understand that Visual Basic for Applications is an object-oriented programming language. I will not go too much into this because it's quite complicated, but just for your knowledge, it is a type of an OOP language, and that will decide how we can use it. So an OOP language means that this programming language is very strong and you can do a lot of things with it. So when do we use VBA? So the first thing I want you to note is that don't jump immediately into VBA. Don't jump immediately into programming. First, it's better to think if there are other ways that I can solve this problem without using programming. So in Excel, we have two tools. The first is called Goal Seek. The second is called Solver. And these two tools are very strong. And in many cases, you can solve a lot of problems that you meet in your chemical engineering studies or even in work, like me. So usually we'll use VBA for repetitive, complicated, or iterative tasks. For example, I need to calculate the same thing 100 times, 1,000 times. Then I'm going to use a VBA for these calculations. So just to show you what is Goal Seek. So Goal Seek is under the what if analysis tab here. And what Goal Seek does is that Goal Seek makes A equals to B by changing C. So it's as easy as A, B, C. Just remember A, B, C. So these are the terms A, B, C that I'm going to use here. So let's use the first example. So I think most of you are chemical engineering students, right? So I'm going to use a chemical engineering student example. This guy is Steve. He's taking 5 subjects this semester, and he's worried that he might fail because his scores are not very good, obviously. And he needs an average mark of 60 to pass. So how many marks does he need in this final subject to pass this semester? So if you want to try, you can take out a calculator and start pressing. But I'm going to show you how to do it in Excel. So let me open my Excel now. Okay, can everyone see my worksheet, which I have opened? I think you guys can see it. So let's go to example 1. And you can see that I have this written this here. So what you can do is you can click on. So this is the cell, this is the score that I want you to fill in, which is this thermodynamic score. So how do we use Goal Seek here is we click on data, what if analysis, Goal Seek. So this is the Goal Seek function. So you can see the three items I need to fill in. So the first is which cell to set. So I'm going to set the average cell to a value of 60. So I can just key in 60 here. And by changing cell in here, okay. So you should get the correct answer of 75. So this is a very simple example of what is Goal Seek. So let me go back to my slides. Okay, so this is a result that you should get if you are using it correctly. So what I did was I wanted to make this average marks to 60 by changing the thermodynamic score. So if you have any questions, do feel free to type in the chat box. I'll address them later if you have any trouble using Goal Seek. But if you don't have any questions, I'm going to go into my chemical engineering example of Goal Seek. So I'm going to use a simple quench system design for to show you how Goal Seek works in chemical engineering. So this will be a mass and energy balance calculation. So this is a photo of a gas turbine. A gas turbine is used to generate power, and many big petrochemical plants, refineries use them. So in this case, this is actually a real gas turbine supplied to the Pertamina Balikpapan refinery project, which is a very big project in Borneo, I believe. And so what happens with gas turbines is that they produce flue gas. Flue gas contains CO2, H2O, carbon monoxide, CO, and NO2, NO. So CO and NO2 are CO and NO and NO2 are dangerous gases. And so that usually gas turbine outlet will have some kind of reactor to reduce these two emissions to a very low level before they are discharged to the stack. So we have flue gas entering through here. And because the temperature of flue gas is high, usually we have some quench air injection. So this is by absorbing air from the atmosphere. We mix the air into the flue gas, temperature goes down, goes into the reactor, and then out the stack. So this is a simple quench system design for a gas turbine. So I'm going to say, so let's say we have an example. So Steve again, you are going to see this guy a lot of times today. He's designing a quench system, and the plant manager wants that the flue gas to have 15% oxygen mole fraction. So now we want to know how much air is needed to make the fresh air, to turn the flue gas into 15% oxygen. So we are going to have some compositions here, and fresh air is used with this composition. Find the mass flow rate of fresh air required. So let me go to the Excel here, and we are going to go into example 2. So you can see that I fill in the calculations here. If you don't have, I'm going to just show it to you how to fill in. So I make a table of what are components in flue gas, O2, N2, CO2. I have mole fractions here, and I have the total flow rate. So the first thing first, of course, I'm going to calculate the average molecular rate, and then the molar flow rate here. And then I'm going to just multiply by the total flow rate. And for here, I'm going to calculate using the mass flow rate of each component. Oops, I forgot to divide by 100. So let's see. So I'll not go through too much of the theory of how to get the mole fraction, mass fraction, and so on. I hope you guys know how to get this. But if you have a problem with this, to type in the chat box, I'll address them later. Alright. So you can see that I have also made a table for fresh air, and the value is 0 here. And we have the flue gas and fresh air mixture, which I just added up the two flow rates. So for nitrogen, I just added up these two flow rates. And carbon dioxide, I added this flow rate because we don't have carbon dioxide in fresh air. And I get the total here. And I calculated, of course, the mole fractions and mass fractions in this case. So I don't want to go too much into theory, just to show you how this works. I'm going to use Goal Seek to make this 15%. So again, go to what if analysis, Goal Seek. So I set this cell, click this, select the value of 15. And by changing cell, I'm going to click here. So the mass flow rate of fresh air, I'm going to change it. So I just click OK. Oops. So I finally get the answer here. So this is a very simple example of Goal Seek. Let me see if I have any questions. Can we get the presentation later? The presentation is in the link that I just posted. You can download the presentation from the link. So don't worry, you can just download the presentation from the link. All right. So again, this is A, B, C, and I make final auto content 15 by changing fresh airflow rate. I should get the answer here. And I'm going to go to the next tool, which is Solver. So Solver is the big brother to Goal Seek. However, Solver is used for optimization problems, and it's quite difficult to use because you must define the problem in a way that contains these three parts: the objective function, inequality constraint, and equality constraint. So very complicated, right? So let me show you a simple example. Let's have Steve again. He is now working at a refinery, and he's trying to blend fuel to meet certain specifications. So I'm going to show you these specifications: minimize cost, the raw number more than 95, lead content less than 0.5, density more than 750. So determine the volume fraction of each fuel required. So before I start, I'm going to assume that all the properties are going to be linearly proportional. So for example, the cost is just a volume fraction, multiply the cost, add the volume fraction, multiply the cost, add the volume fraction, multiply the cost, and then I total the whole thing, I can get the cost. So this is an assumption. Of course, the solver will work if there's no assumption, but I'm going to use this just to make it a very simple example. So note that x1, x2, x3 will add up to 100 because this is actually the volume fraction. So let me show you in Excel because it's quite difficult to see in the slide here. So let me go back to my Excel here, and I go to example 3. Okay, so you can see I have the problem here. I have helped you to make the calculations as well, so it's much easier to see from here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Solver, just beside the what if analysis. So one question you have is that, but I don't have this solver. How many of you do not have this icon in your Excel? I'm sure many of you do not have this, right? So what you do is you click on File, Options, Add-ins, Manage Excel Add-ins, you click Go. And here make sure that you tick Solver and click OK. Then Solver should appear under the Data tab, Analyze Solver. So I say it again, click on File, Options, Add-ins, Manage Add-ins, Go, tick on Solver Add-in. So make sure that you have ticked this. Okay, then you should see Solver in the box here. So you might have a different version of Excel, then some of the steps will be slightly different, but they'll be generally in the same place. If you have some trouble, please type in the chat box if you cannot find where is for Solver. Okay, so I'm going to use Solver now. I'm assuming that you guys have Solver. So I'm going to click on Solver. Oops, see them, I have a problem here. Let me try another version of this book. Okay, so let me try this. So I already have the answer here, unfortunately. So let me delete the answer. Okay, let's not show the answer here. And I'm going to use Solver right now. So let me go to Data, Solver. So you can see I fill in here, but just to delete these settings, I'm going to click Reset All. Okay, so no more. So let me guide you one by one. So the first thing is the objective function. So this is what you want to maximize, what you want, or you want to minimize, or you want to set to certain value. So I want to minimize the cost. So I'm going to click here, minimize, select, fill cost. Okay, the next one is the variable cell. So this is what I'm supposed to change. So I'm going to click this. I highlight the 3 components. Subject to the constraints. So these are the constraints I've written here actually. So let me click on cell reference. So I'm going to click this one, more than 95. Then I click on add. Then you click this, less than, I think 0.5. Entity, more than 750. And the total volume should be equal to 100. So you can choose to type here, or you can choose to select in the cell. So I'm going to do both just to show that it can be done. Okay. And I'm going to tick this one. Make unconstrained variables non-negative means that these variables that I just chose here, that means the 3 volume fractions are going to be not negative, because I don't want the volume fraction to be negative. Otherwise, it will give me a negative answer. I'm going to click solve. And by magic, you get the answer. So in this case, solver thinks that I need to blend 42.9% of A, 57.1% of B. So that's the best solution that minimizes the cost of the field. So let me go back to my slides here. So I'm going to show you in equation form. So objective function is to minimize costs, inequality constraints, and equality constraint. And this x1 more than 0, x2 more than 0, x3 more than 0 is to make sure that it's not a negative number. And I do that by just tick the box here, and it will settle this constraint for me. So if any questions, please type in the chat box. I'm going to look at them later. And you should get the same answer as me. So if you are lucky, it does take a bit of luck sometimes. So if you cannot get this answer, you might want to change these values. For example, I put in like 40, 60. Put in some starting value that's close to the final answer, and then you try to use solver again. You should get the correct answer if you use it correctly. Yeah. Any questions, please type in the chat box. I have a look on the questions. So I have shown you how to use Goal Seek, how to use solver. But there are some problems that I cannot solve with both Goal Seek or solver. That's the problem. So in that case, the first, for example, one major problem that I cannot solve would be how to do the balance. So you can do energy balance in Excel, but if you want to type out, it's a lot of equations to type, and it's very complicated to do so. So I'm going to show you how to use VBA in Microsoft Excel. So let me go back to my Excel here. This one. Okay. So the first thing to do to open this VBA is to click on Developer, Visual Basic. So this is how you open it. So the first question is, I don't have this Developer tab. I'm sure some of you will not have it. So what you do is you click on File again, Options, Customize Ribbon. Here, you can choose Popular Commands. So I think you choose Main tabs here. Click on Developer and click Add. So I've already added, so I'm not going to add again, but this is how you add the Developer tab into your Excel. So you just click OK. So this Developer tab should show up. So let me just click on Visual Basic. Okay, so I have the so this is a simple Visual Basic. So let me open my blank one just to show you. So this is how the Visual Basic editor looks like. So you're going to do your programming here, and it's a very powerful tool that you can do a lot of things here. So I'm going to show you a few things. First is this project. This is the project window where it shows you what is open right now. So I have 2 Excel files open. Let me close this Excel file. Let's not save it. So now there's only one left. So this is it shows you which files are open. And inside each file, you should have a sheet of which example is which one. But usually I would not do it like this way. I click Insert a Module. So this module is a place where I can store my code, and it's better because I can access this code anywhere inside the Excel file. For example, I have 10 sheets. I can access this module from all the 10 sheets. If I put the code inside this sheet 1, I can only access the code in sheet 1. So it's quite difficult. So I'm going to right click on here, Insert Module. So I have this module 1. So when I click this property window will show up, and then I can give it a name. Let's just call it so just a sample name here. So this is a general window where I'm going to type in what code I want. This is the immediate window, which is I can run code immediately in this window. And this is locals, which I'm going to show later. So if you don't have the same window as mine, click on view. You can access all the code, other windows here. For example, I can click on locals and you will show this locals window. Yeah. So this is the basics of VBA. So let me go back to the slide. So you should see this screen. It's the same as what I've shown just now. And so before we start coding, we have to understand the basic components of VBA. So there are going to be 4 components. The first is variables. So a variable is where a container where I use to store information. For example, I can use a variable. I can store my name, Wei Jian, and that's a variable. After I have stored this information inside, I can manipulate them using operators. So I can add, minus, divide, multiply, and so on. After I have defined these two, I need to define the function, which is what I want to do using the VBA code. Finally, I need to decide when to do what and how many times to do something. So this is branches and loops. So don't worry, it sounds like a lot to you, but I'm going to guide you step by step on how to use these 4 main components. So the first is variables. So there is a very large number of variables. There are, I think, at least 30. But to be honest, we are not going to use 30. We are going to use like 3 or 4. So there are a few types of variables. These names are going to be specific to VBA. And I give you an example. So a string, it means some words or text. So hello world, exclamation mark, it's a string. Integer is a number, can be positive, negative, or 0. Boolean means true or false, which is used in logic type applications in computer science. We have single, which is a type of, which is a number. So double is also a number. So the difference in these 2 numbers is the accuracy. So double is a more accurate version. So in single is actually it will round off your number to a certain decimal numbers in order to save memory space. So if you want to be perfectly accurate, you want to be more accurate, use double. And we have the variant data type. So variant type is actually, if I'm not sure whether I want it to be a number or text, I can put in variant. And array is a collection of elements. This is a more advanced version, so I'm not going to talk about it today. And empty means there's nothing. So in Excel, you must understand that in programming and actually many other languages, 0 is different from empty. So print means show the variable. Show the variable. So in this case, I just define x equals 2. So print x is going to show 2. So you can go to the next line. Let's say x equals to 2 plus 4. Print x. Right? It's going to show x equals to 6. So it's very simple here. So let's say I define y equals to 3, z equals to x, print that. I get 9. Yeah, hopefully you have no problem with this. So let's try with some string terms. So let's say my name. I'm going to call this variable my name. But usually when we name variables, we are going to use capital letters inside just to make it easier to read. If I do it like that, it's okay, but it's more difficult to see. So I'm going to do this. And I'm going to put my name in quotes. I'm going to print my name. So you get my name out. So this is how we use variables. And then let's show you a Boolean variable. Let's say a equals to true. So print a, I'm going to show true. So later I'm going to show how we are going to use this, but you can see that this is what you call a true-false variable or Boolean variable. And let's say if I try to type in something that I haven't defined, let's say b, nothing will happen because this is an empty variable. Yeah. So this is a simple introduction to how you type things in VBA. So, but having only variables is very boring because you can't do anything with it. So next thing will be operators. So operators are how we manipulate variables to get what we want. So we can have simple mathematical operations, exponent, assignment. Assignment means I want x equal to something. This is a not equal to something, less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, and, or, and not. So I'm going to show, I just showed, I think, plus just now. So I'm going to show a few of the bottom ones here. So let me go back to this VBA. I'm going to delete all this just to make it easier to see. And let me say, let's say x equals to 2. Now I can use a comparison. Let's say I can print x equals to 2. We'll say true because x is equal to 2. So let's say print x equals to 4. False because x is not equal to 4. Print x is not equal to 2. So false because x is equal to 2. So some of this logic can get a bit confusing. So I can also do some very complicated, let's just say, and let me give you y equals to 1, print x equals to 2, and y equals to 1. 2, because both of these are true. So let's say I change y to 2, print x equals to 2, and y equals to 1. I'm going to show false, print x equals to 2, or y equals to 1. And show true. So n, so definition of n is that if one of them is, if both of them must be true, then it will be true. For all, if one of them is true, then the answer is true. So this is a simple example of operators. So if any questions, please type in the chat box. I'll try to answer them later. So let me go back to this slide here. So you can, so let me show you this last one, not. I can print x not, I can print not true, let's say, then you say false. So this is a simple way of using not. Yeah. So the next thing I'm going to show you is functions and subroutines. So this is the main.
Oh, anak berke emang perjuangan.
So this is the main function of VBA.
Seperti gonceng-gonceng ngurus-ngurusin ngono kue. Kan mesti bayar deh. Bayar apa?
Okay, so this is the main function of how to use VBA. We have function and subroutine. So a function is something that has input and output, can be called. So subroutine is something that has only input, no output, can be run. So it sounds very confusing, right? Don't worry, later I'll show you. Can be private or private. So these two things are decide how you can access them. And it's recommended to declare all variables before use. Just to make sure that it doesn't have any problems in the code. So let me just show you one example of how to do a function here. Okay, so I'm going to delete everything here. I'm going to go into this. I'm going to click on my testing module, and I'm going to use this. So I'm going to clear everything here first. And how do I define a function is I just type in the word function. And then I give it a name, let's say test1. Open close bracket. So this is the way to define it. When I press enter, you see Excel will add this line and function. So that means that Excel has detected the function correctly. So let me just delete this and put in a subroutine. We type in sub, S1. So same thing happens. So I'm going to just to show you how to use this properly. So let me define a variable. Use the keyword dim to define a variable. I'm going to call, let's say, greeting as string. So this means that I want this variable greeting to be a string variable. And I'm going to assign the string here. I'm going to call it hello. And I'm going to ask it to report hello. So I can use the term message box. So this is a special function inside Excel where you show you a box that says hello. So when you type in a special function, it's going to tell you a hint on how to use this properly. So in this case, I'm just going to use greeting. And I click run. You can see the run sub user form button here. I just click it. Then it shows a box that says hello. Yeah, that's it. Let's say I don't want to use this message box. I can comment it out. So by typing a single point, so this is a comment. So a command will not be executed by Excel. So in this case, I can just leave it there, just in case I want to use it back, but currently I want to turn it off. So usually I will do is I will put this symbol and it will not run the code that I don't want it to run. Okay, so this is a simple example. So you can try out this example in the slide here, just if you want to just to play around. Let us go to the more important things here, which is how to use this code. So after I have a function, usually I'm going to use branching and looping inside the function. So I can do either conditional branching or loops. So conditional branching means if else. So let's say I have if something is something, I want to do something, otherwise I do something else, otherwise I do something else. So this is if else. Whereas for loops is I want to do something a certain number of times.
Bahasa Indonesia.
So let me just try this simple loop here. Okay. So let me just delete everything here. Let's say I as integer. I'm going to use I as an integer. And I'm going to use a loop for I. Let's see what example here. Okay, I have 1 to 10. So I'm going to use 1 to 10. And I want it to show me I want Excel to tell me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Simple as that. So I'm going to use the keyword debug.query. And then next. So usually what I will do is I will actually tap in, I will just put in a tab here just to show that which functions are part of which part. So in this case, debug query inside this form. So I'm going to do this tabbing. So it's going to show clearer. And I'm going to just click 1. And it will tell me macro name test1 because my name here I define as test1. So it shows me test1. Click 1. So you can see in the immediate window, it just tells me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. Simple as that. Yeah. So if any questions, please type in the chat box. I will answer them. Okay. So this one, if else, will be shown later because it's more complicated. So just to give a simple introduction, let's play a game. Have you guys seen this kind of motivational posters before? It says, if you want to get 100%, you have to have certain skills or knowledge or hard work. But finally, the answer is attitude. So this is the answer that we want to get. So can we do some Excel programming to help me calculate the score for each word? And then we can find out which word we get 100. Yeah. So, but before we jump into VBA, it's better to make a sketch of what we want to do. So let's say I have the word attitude. So what I want to do is I want to separate out the letters to individual. And then I want to give the score of each individual letter. And I add up the score. And I just want the final answer 100. So this is a sketch. So it's usually better before you start doing anything, you write down a piece of paper just to get a rough framework of what you want to do. So let's do this. Yeah. So let me go back to this one. And let me delete everything. So let me go back to Excel. And you can see example 4 here. I have prepared the sheet for you. So what you need to do is you want to calculate the score inside this box. Yeah, just inside this box. So let me just see if there are any questions here. No questions, I'm going to proceed. Okay. So I'm going to use what I call a function because I have input and output. So in this case, I get the input is this word. This is the input. I want the score output. So I have input, output. This is a function. So I use the keyword function. I'm going to call it, let's say, word score. Close bracket, enter. So I get a new function. So I just make some space here. And I want to take this word attitude inside VBA. So let me define a word as string. But in this case, because I have an input, this word is going to be the input for the function. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this. I'm going to put this inside these brackets. So this bracket means the input of the function. So I want to use word as the input. So the output is a score. So I'm going to put score as an integer. Okay. And then I'm going to calculate the score. So I initialize the score by putting a 0. This is the initial score. I want the final score. So to set the final score, I must give the score to this name. So this is the output. So I'm going to have output word score equals to score. So I'm going to calculate the score here, and then I'm going to put inside this variable word score, and then it will show up in the Excel sheet. Yeah. So let me start to divide the letters. So to do the letters, I need to have a variable. So let me have a thin current letter as a string, because a letter is a text, so I need to define as a string. And I'm going to, let's say, use one letter I as an integer, just to show, just to store the what is a current letter. Yeah. So let me type a comment here. The word we are going to use is attitude, just for my reference. And I can see that this word has a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 letters. So it means that I'm going to use a for loop. I equals to 1 to 8. So I have 8 letters here. And for each letter, I'm going to take out the score. So I'm going to take out the letter first. So I'm going to use a special keyword here. The special keyword here is mid. So mid means take out the letter that is currently at this position. So I'm going to bracket. So it's going to show me the hint string start as long length. So the first is what word I want to take out. The second is what is the position, so I. And length means how many words, how many letters I want to take out. So I just want to take out one letter, so I just type 1. Okay, before I continue, I usually put something to what I call debug the program. So I'm going to just put debug print current letter, just to make sure that the function is going to run properly. So let me just change this back to sub so I can run it here. So I'm going to end sub here, where I click run. So let me use this word as a testing, and then I'm going to shut down this current letter here, just for testing purposes, and I'm going to click run. Function, okay. Shut this down. I forgot to type next. So let me type next here, then it should work now. Okay, so you can see that Excel has successfully taken out the letter. So that's a good thing. So let's continue with, I want to change this letter into a number. So A equals to 1, B equals to 2, C equals to 3, D equals to 4, and so on. So let me just comment out this line. And I'm going to change it to a number. So the way to do it is to use a ASC, current letter. So just to see what it shows up, let me just put a debug print statement here. I need to have double brackets because I have a function inside a function. So let me just delete this part and then I click run. Okay, something wrong here. A is 65. I want A to be 1. Why is A 65? I have no idea. Let's say, let me just try the word B. Let's put A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. It is. So I get 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72. There's something wrong, right? I want A to be 1, B equal to 2, C equal to 3, D equal to 4, E equal to 5, and so on. So then I can find other ways to do it, but the easiest way is just I will go to minus 64 from here. Because I know it's going to be in sequence. When I click run, it's going to show me the correct sequence. Yeah. So let me just put back the word attitude here. Delete this and I click run. So you can see, okay, finally I have managed to get the correct answer I want. So I'm going to do something, which is I'm going to add up the score. So let me just comment out here. I want the score to be added. So let's say the score starts at 0. I want to add 1, so it becomes 1. Add 20, become 21. Add 20 becomes 41. So I can do this by typing score equals score plus this part. Now I'm going to just debug print score. So when I type this, you see you have score on both sides, right? This means the new score is equal to old score plus something. Yeah, so new score equals to old score plus something. So I'm going to just debug print here to make sure that it gets the answer that I want. So let me just click run. Okay, so I get answer 100. So that's the answer that I want. So this shows that this code works properly. So I'm going to delete this. I'm going to comment out this line because I actually don't need it. And I'm going to put back this. And I'm going to put back this as a function. Okay, so now we have the actual function here. So let me just save it just in case it crashes. So when you save it, you must be careful. When you save the file, make sure that in the file type, you put Excel macro enable workbook. Otherwise, if you don't do that, when you save, everything is going to, all your code will disappear, and then you are going to cry for the whole day, I can tell you. So remember to set your save as this type, Excel macro enable workbook. Then you click on save. And then only then will your code be saved inside the Excel. Otherwise, your code will be disappear. Yeah, so better be careful on that. So let me just try if this code works inside Excel. So let me go back to my Excel. So how I'm going to call this function is I'm going to type in equal and use it as any normal Excel function. So let's say I just type in word score. You can see that word score actually appears as a custom function. So this is what I call the user-defined function that I said previously. So I'm going to open bracket here. I'm going to choose this cell. So you just use it as any normal Excel function, plus, minus, and so on. And click on enter. Then you can get the answer. Yeah. So you can treat it as a normal. You can copy the formula. You can drag a formula with fill. And you can get the score. So you can see that these two answers are not correct. So why? So I'm going to teach you a little bit on debugging. So let me just go back to see why knowledge is not giving me the tick, which means that it's not a correct answer. Let me go back to Excel. So what's the problem here? The problem is that I set the length of the letter to be 8, but knowledge actually has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Knowledge has 9 letters. So just to make it flexible, I don't want to keep changing the code. I'm going to just type in len, L-E-N, word. So this will tell me the length of the word. I'm going to save this, and let's try it, you see it works. So when I change the code, it will not update automatically. You have to like enter here. So it tells me the correct answer now. So knowledge is 96. And let's try this switch balance, 99. So you have completed example 4. Yeah. So if you have any problems, please type in the chat box now. I'm going to leave this code up just to let you see. In case you have any problems, you can follow and type in, or you can take a screenshot. You can take use your phone and take a photo or something. Is okay. I'm going to just leave it here for you to have a look in case you have any problems. If you have any problems, please type in the chat box just to, and I'll try to answer them. So I see if you have any problems in the chat box. Okay, there are some previous questions. What is the difference between debug print and print? So just now when I show you, I used the term print. Hello. But here I use the term debug print. So what's the difference between these two? The simple answer that debug print is the correct method. This print is a shortcut that only works here. If you try to use print inside, it won't work. Yeah, so for example, I can just type in debug.print. Hello. So it's going to show the same thing. But when you're typing the real code, you have to use debug.print. You can't just type print. Let me save this. Okay, I see that there are no questions for now. So if there are no questions, I'm going to go into the next slide, which is some thinking problems. Yeah. So the function only works on uppercase words. If you notice, right, the function only works on uppercase words. So what about lowercase words? So I'll give you 30 seconds. Type me your suggestion on how you're going to change the function so that it works on both uppercase and lowercase words. Any suggestions? Please type in the chat box and I have a look. Yeah, how do I make the function work on uppercase and lowercase words? Okay, any suggestions? Let's go back to Excel and let's brainstorm a bit on how to do this. So we can see that this word must be a capital letter word. So let's say I use a small letters. I answer 407, which is obviously 356, which is obviously not correct. So the problem is that in VBA, right, upper and lowercase letter is different. It's considered as a different thing. So if I put that, I get 100. If I put a mixture of I get also a different score. So this shows that in VBA, they consider upper and lowercase letter different things. So how do I make this? How do I ensure that you can calculate the score even if I'm using upper or lowercase? So some people previously they told me you can use an if else. So if uppercase you do something, else you do something. But the easy way is just to edit this part and type in the function upper. The function upper, what does this do is that upper will make the word uppercase. That's all. I don't care what the word previously, I want to make it uppercase. So I'm going to save it and show you what happens. Oops, not defined, sorry. We have a look here. Oops, sorry, I used the wrong keyword here, it should be U word. So U word is to make the word uppercase. So that's it. Oops. I'm click on stop debugging, reset here, and then I click on work. So let me try, yeah. Let me just do it outside, maybe better. Let me just do it U word equal to U case. Oh, yeah, the correct term is U case. Sorry, I forgot it. So U case is to make the word uppercase. So I'm going to just change this to U word, and then I'm going to type in U word here. Okay, so let me click on reset, and I'm going to save it. And then let me go back and see if it works. So let me go here and so correct. It shows me the correct answer now. So let me try a small letter. So it shows me the same answer. So attitude, capital letter, same answer. Small and big. Capital letter and small letters, same answer. So this is how you make something so that it's more flexible. Sometimes you have to think about how you can use the VBA properly. Sometimes some people, let's say I make this code, I send it to you. You might not use the same way as me. So you have to build in some flexibility in how you can interpret the input for this VBA code. Yeah. So I hope it's pretty interesting for you guys. So let me go back to my slides now, and I'm going to continue with the more difficult example of mass balance. It's going to take a while. So if you have any problems, please type in the chat box now. I'm going to solve the problem for you before we continue. Yeah, let me see in the chat box if you have any problems. Is the link presentation link shared? Yes, the link is shared previously. I'm going to share the link again just to just to make it easy for you. So you can download the presentation slide and the worksheet from the link. So I just share in the chat box. So you might want to download it now because the next example is more difficult. So yeah. So any more questions, please type in the chat box and I will try to answer them. Okay, I see I don't have any questions, so let me just continue for a while. So the example number 2 is going to be energy balance. So this topic is a little bit about mass and energy balance. So just now I show you some mass balance. So maybe now I'll just show you an energy balance example. And for energy balance, one of the more important concepts is heat capacity. So I think you know what heat capacity is. So, but just to refresh your memory, the definition of heat capacity is the heat energy required to raise the temperature of one mole substance by 1 degree Celsius. So in this case, I use the mole definition. So in many textbooks, for example, in Paris Chemical Engineering Handbook, the heat capacity is given as a formula, A plus B, T plus C, T squared, and so on. And the constants A, B, and C are constants. They depend on the substance. So in this case, let me just show you an example using oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon dioxide. Just simple gases for now. So just for refresh your memory a bit, if you have studied this before, if not, then I will just give you the consensus so you don't have to go and look in the Paris Chemical Engineering Handbook. So the actual equation has more terms. So some have plus D, plus E, plus F, plus G. But for this example, I'm just going to use a simple version. We only have 3 constants, A, B, and C. The actual term, just to tell you, this is not the actual answer. Don't jump and think that this is the correct heat capacity. No, because the real one has many more terms, D, E, F, and so on. So I give you the CP, heat capacity in joule per mole Celsius. ABC are constant depend on gas. T is absolute temperature in Kelvin. To convert from Celsius to Kelvin, I'm going to, this probably, I hope you know this, that you just add 273 or 273.15 is okay. I'm just going to use this to be simpler. And I'm going to tell you how to develop a function CP with the input, substance, and temperature. So substance will be the name of the gas. So I'm going to put in substance here, and the temperature is going to be in degrees Celsius. So let me just go to my Excel a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a CP. I'm going to develop a function where I can type in like O2, and then the temperature, let's say 100 degrees Celsius. So I'm going to develop this function. Now there's no answer because I haven't actually done it yet. So I'm going to develop this function for you. Let me go back and to this Visual Basic. So just not to disturb this, I'm going to right click here, insert module. So I'm going to insert the new module. This module, let's say I just call it example 5. Okay, simple. So I just delete this. So I'm going to call this a function, CP, bracket, substance as string, E degree C as double. So I can also use it as single. But the difference between single and double is that the single is a single precision floating point number. So double is going to be double precision floating point number. So the simple explanation is that the double is more accurate. Okay, just to not go too much into computer science, because I'm not a computer science scientist myself, I'm a chemical engineer also. So I'm just going to tell you that double is more accurate. So I'm just going to put in double in this part. All right. And let me just look at my cheat sheet a bit. Okay. So I'm going to introduce I'm going to introduce a formula for heat capacity. So I want the heat capacity to be the output. So this is the output. I must calculate the output here. So I'm going to put Cp equals to A plus B multiply P. Remember that you have to use the multiply symbol. I cannot just type in BT. It will not work properly. And then I just add C multiply P power 2. So to be safe, I'm going to put this in bracket, but it will also work if it is not in bracket. I'm just going to be safe here. And now I need to define the terms, of course, A, B, T, and C. Let me dim B as double. So A, B, and C are constant, so I can just type in this way, A, B, and C as double. This is, sorry, should not be the word N. So this is a shortcut, so I don't have to keep typing the same thing again and again and again. I can just put all together the same line with commas. So that's a simple way. So let me just do the first one. So let's say for oxygen. I'm going to type in A equals to B equals to C equals to. Then I'm going to just copy them from the sheet because I'm a bit lazy to type everything. So let me just come in here. I will just copy this number. Oops. Okay, so I now have the numbers here. So and the final thing I have to do is I have to get the T. So the T is a temperature in Kelvin. So to get Kelvin, I have to add 273 to the answer. So in this case, I should get the correct answer for oxygen. So let me just try and see if it works. Missing something here. Let me see what I'm missing. Sorry, I should have put minus. Sorry.
Maybe you can check the word strong to be replaced by string.
Yeah, true. I think that's a typo. Thanks for telling me, Havis. Okay, so let me just try and see if it works properly. Okay, so I get the answer here. Probably this is not working properly, so this one should be the answer. So I have shown you how you can use this. I can just type in directly, or I can refer to the cell. So I can just refer like this, and this I can refer like this. It should give me the same answer. So this is how I can use a function. So you can imagine that you can develop a function for enthalpy, density, viscosity, compressibility factor, thermal conductivity, and so on. So you can imagine that as long as you have the constant, you have the equation, you can do a lot of functions that you can think of. What you can think of, you can do it. And even in thermodynamics also. So we have developed the first one for O2. If I try to drag this, it will also calculate the temperature, the CP for O2 because I haven't changed it, right? So in this case, only O2 is defined. So let me just define the variable for if I'm going to change it to nitrogen. So I'm just going to change this to and I'm going to copy the constants here because I'm lazy to type them. Okay. So now I have these two gases. I need to have a way to switch between oxygen and nitrogen. Otherwise, it will not work properly, right? It will just give me the value for oxygen. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use what we call an if statement. So I'm going to say if, open bracket, substance. Actually, I don't need open bracket anymore. If substance equals to O2, that means it's going to check if a substance is actually oxygen, then and then it will do this three. So let me just put this in proper place. Okay, if I want to go, I go to nitrogen, so I can just type in else if substance equals to N2. And so let me just put this in the right place. And I can do one more for carbon dioxide later. So, but remember that if I have an if and else, I must have a and if, just to make sure that the whole thing is properly done. So I'm going to I'm going to make this indent just to see properly. So now let's see if it works out. Let me just save the project. Okay, so now it works properly. So it gives me the heat capacity of nitrogen, heat capacity of oxygen. Probably it's not showing properly, but so last one for CO2. So let me just put in for CO2. So if I want to add a new CO2, I can just copy this part and put this. I did this command for carbon dioxide, CO2, and I'm going to get the constants from the sheet. So just as a simple rule, inside if you must have one if, only one if. For else if, you can have as many as you want. You can have 1, 2, 3, 10, 20, 100, or 0. And if you have a last one, you can actually just type else. So in this case, for example, I only have 3 guesses. The last one I can just type else. Then it will work. So I can just comment out this one, and I can just type else, and if it's auto, it will choose this, and 2, it choose this, else it will choose this. It doesn't care what any more guesses that you have, but just to be on the safe side, I'm going to not use this term else. I'm going to use else if, because I can use as many else ifs as I want. And remember to put in the end statement here, just to tell it when to stop choosing. So let me just try in the last one. So let me just drag this out. So I get a value error because this is actually a string. 300 space K is not a number, it's a string. So, but I want the temperature to be in 300 Kelvin. I don't want it to be in Celsius. So what I do is I can just click on here, change the temperature input to -273. Yeah, so I get the answer. Or if I want, I can just do it here. So I get the temperature in Celsius, and then I just push back temperature. So I can get the same answer. So this is probably everything that I'm going to show you today for heat capacity. So you can think of many other ways that you can do anything. So, but the strong thing about this kind of functions is that you can manipulate them just like any other Excel function. Let me just look at this. Task 3. Calculate the CP of a mixture of 2 gases. So I have these 2 gases. I want to calculate the CP of this mixture. So what I can do is that I can actually just enter CP. Sorry. Oops. $25. And I can actually just multiply or divide just like any other Excel function. So I can just multiply like that. I can treat this part like any other normal standard Excel function. Then I can add this multiplied by CP and do temperature. And then the whole thing I divide by 100. So I can now calculate the CP for a simple mixture of gases. Of course, I'm assuming ideal gas here. In real life, the CP is not just an addition. And I can get the correct answer. Yeah. So this is how you can manipulate these functions by just using them as any standard Excel function, multiply, divide, add, and so on. So if you have one extra challenge, you're going to see that between this, there are some hidden rows here. You can hide the rows where I have given you some extra questions that you can try if you want to know more about VBA, but they are more difficult. Until I draw a few chilies, the more number of chilies means the more difficult. So like last one is very difficult, second is medium difficulty, first one is probably easy. So let me go through with this with you. Write a function, CP average, that calculates the average of CP at 2 temperatures. So if I want to calculate the average of CP at 2 temperatures, I can just, let's say I have temperature 100. Let me just put it somewhere here. 125. And I can just type in CP, O2, let's say O2, 100 plus CP, O2, 25. And then I can just divide by 2. So this is the answer. But is there a better way to do it easier? Let's go back to my VBA here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the same module. I'm going to define a new function below this module. So I'm going to call it a function CP average. So you can see that Excel actually add a new line between these two different functions. And so inside this function, I'm going to calculate the substance, of course, as string. Then we have the temperature 1 as a double. And we have temperature 2 as double. So what I can do now is I can copy this whole code again inside this new function. Let me just drag this a bit. So I can copy this new code into this function. And I can calculate the same thing, but it's difficult and it's very annoying because I have to have very long code. So what I can do is I can just ask Excel to go back to this function, calculate this value, and then come back here. So this is a shortcut. So I'm going to say CP1, let's say dim CP1, CP2 as double. Let's say CP1 equals to, so I can call another function here, substance, B.C1. And CP2 equals to CP substance, B.C2. So what happens now is I want Excel to save inside CP1, go into CP, give it the same substance, give it temperature degree Celsius 1, take out the answer, save here. Then do it again, but with a different temperature. So it's possible to do this. And this is what we call modular programming. That means I write my code in a way that it has one module, second module will refer to the first module. So when I change the first module, the second module will change automatically. So that makes it very easy for programming. So I don't have to keep repeating the same thing again and again and again because it's very tiring. So I'm going to calculate CP average here equals to CP1 plus CP2 divided by 2. Let's try if it works. Let me just save this and go back to this. CP. So you can see the new code that shown up, CP average. I'm going to type in O2, temperature 1, temperature 2. So I get the same answer. So this is how you use functions inside other functions. So the correct computer science term is we call this nested functions. So the correct term is actually called nested functions, but I just don't want to use too many difficult terms here. So if you have any questions, please type in the chat box. I'm going to just show this on the screen, just in case you have any trouble. I think it's small here. So I'm going to show this on the screen. So if you have any trouble, you can have a look on how I do that. And if you have any questions, please type in the chat box and I will try to answer them. Yeah, let me see the chat box here. Okay, there's a question from Miss Julian Dewey. Why we do not directly just calculate CP using function or worksheet instead of using VBA? Okay, very good question. And this comes back to, let's say, how you want to use this sheet capacity. For example, let's say I have 10 different worksheets inside my Excel file. Like when I'm doing a real project in the industry, we use Excel, we have 10, 20 sheets. And every sheet, we have to calculate the heat capacity of some gases that are similar. Let's say CO2, water, oxygen, nitrogen. So all the 20 sheets will have the same gas to be calculated. So the problem is that if I want to do heat capacity inside Excel, I have to copy paste inside every sheet, or I have to link the formula across sheets, and that's very inconvenient for you. You have to keep copying the same thing again and again, very long and so on. But if I do it in VBA, I just do it once. I do it once, I can go to Excel, I can access the code from any sheet. I have 100 sheets, 50 sheets, 20 sheets, doesn't matter. I can just access it directly. And this also means that I can use the CP value for certain other calculations. For example, I want to calculate the heat enthalpy. I can write an enthalpy function in VBA that uses this VBA CP value. So it's actually very easy because once the code is there, I can refer to this code from other bits of code. So that's what makes it very convenient. And actually, just to share with you, I use this code every day in my actual working life. Yeah, so I'm not just sharing something that is in theory. So my company and I, we use this kind of code in calculations every day. Because sometimes when even you have process simulator and so on, like Aspen Plus or HYSYS, some things is better to just validate or verify with manual calculations, and we use VBA for this kind of manual calculations just to verify what the program is showing me. So we don't just blindly trust those programs like Aspen Plus or HYSYS. Yeah, so I hope that answers your questions. So any other questions, please type in the chat box while I leave this here for a while and I'll see if there are any questions. Yeah, Juliani, yeah, welcome. Okay, we have a question from Mr. Harris. How to practice our logic for programming? That's sort of difficult to say, but to learn more about programming, the only way to do is to start doing it. So if you have some assignment, let's say for example, you have some assignment that you want to use, you calculate heat capacity, if why not you try use VBA and try to solve it in VBA. That would be the first. So the only way I can tell you is practice makes perfect. If you don't start to practice, you're not going to go anywhere. So I was forced to, I can say my boss forced me to learn VBA to do programming. That's why I can show you an example very easily now. But of course, when a few years back when I was a student, I didn't know anything. And actually, I was forced to learn just to, you can say my boss forced me to learn, but in a way, I could say that it's something that you have to really try out with what you have. And if you find an opportunity to do it, then just do it. That's how you actually improve slowly, and slowly you get programming, how to type in the logic and so on. And programming is not difficult. I will tell you, once you get the first or second time, you'll be a master already. Let's say you can do this, you can do one more example, then you are an expert. It's actually not that difficult to program, especially for Generation Y people. If you ask my mother or my father to do that, I don't think they might say it's very difficult to use a computer and so on. But I think for us, young people or younger people, it should be probably quite easy to pick up as long as we take the effort to go and try it out with any example that you have. Yeah, so I think that's my answer to your question. Oh, Harris, hope that answers your question. Okay, I have a question from Ronald Hatta from UPN Yogyakarta. Okay, question. Can we do repetitive loops like while or for loops in MATLAB using VBA? The answer is yes. It's the same. Actually, MATLAB and VBA is the same programming language because they are both object-oriented programming languages. As I shared in my slide previously, an OOP language is actually about the same. And just like my testing module, so let me open this testing module. I show you an example of for loop. So this is actually a for while loop. One example of for loop. So this is a very simple one that just tells you the just prints the number 1 to 10. Sorry. Just now I show you an example that prints the number 1 to 10. So this is a for loop that actually adds up the sum of the letters. So this is an example of for loop. So basically anything that you can do in MATLAB, you can do in Excel. Anything that you can do in MATLAB, you can do in Excel. Simple as that. But the way you type in is slightly different. The keywords is slightly different. The bracket and so on is slightly different. Yeah. So I hope that answers your question, Wanda. So the simple answer is that you can do anything that you can do in MATLAB, you can do in Excel. Okay, let me go back to the slides for a while just to end up a few slides. Then we can go to the Q&A session probably. Okay, so before I leave today, I would just like you guys to have a challenge question. Just apply what you have learned. Return to example 2. Assume that the inlet flue gas enters at 600 degrees Celsius. So in case you have forgotten what is example 2, let me go back to my Excel here. Example 2. So this is the example 2. Yeah? This is example 2 where I have a flue gas, I mix with fresh air, and then I get a mixture after the flue gas and fresh air have mixed together. Let's assume that this flue gas is 600 degrees Celsius. And I'm going to assume that this fresh air is going to enter at 25 degrees Celsius because this is ambient air temperature, which is probably something that actually our company does in the real project for gas turbines. We actually do use air to quench these gas turbine exhaust gases. And we have a few projects in Indonesia actually that does that, but I probably will not show you what project because it's confidential. So assume that after I mix with quench air, what's the outlet temperature? So how do I solve this problem? The first thing is to use CP average and set up a Goal Seek formula for enthalpy. So this is going to be my formula for enthalpy. For approximation, I am going to use CP average, but if you are free, you can calculate with the actual enthalpy formula. The actual enthalpy formula involves an integral. So you integrate A plus BT plus CT squared and so on. So it's more complicated. For a simple example, I can just show you right here. So you just set up a Goal Seek formula, make the total inlet enthalpy equals to outlet enthalpy. So energy balance, inlet equals outlet, energy balance by changing outlet temperature. So I'm going to, so feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, post the answer and tag me hashtag Excel VBA. I will tell you if the answer is correct. I don't want to tell you the answer now because I want you guys to try out, because the only way to become better at programming is you have to try this. So once you have the answer, please post the answer and tag me hashtag Excel VBA. So this is my profile. Yeah, but I will not just let you do this like that. I'm going to give you some hints on how to proceed. Don't worry, I'm going to give you some hints. So let me go back to Excel here. So how do I solve this problem is I'm going to put enthalpy here, H. In the unit joule per mole. And sorry, the answer should be in kilojoule per hour because of the unit I use here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set out the formula, CP average is temperature minus 25. And for the gas, I'm going to show this like this. So I'm going to calculate the CP average using temperature of 625. So I'm going to just assume this is the correct answer. In the real life, you might not be using this formula, but just for a simple example. After I get the CP, I multiply by the kilomole per hour, okay? And I multiply by the temperature difference, T minus 25. So in this case, this temperature is 600 minus 25. So I get a very big number because this unit is very small. This is a kilojoule per hour. So let me just show the unit in kilowatt. So I divide by 3,600. Let me just put a bracket here. And I'm just going to copy the temperature here. Just copy. And I'm going to just copy this formula for all the gases. So at 25 degrees Celsius, the enthalpy is 0 because I'm using 25 as a reference state. So if you go back to your energy balance, 25 degrees Celsius is the reference state, you are going to get enthalpy of 0. So I'm going to try a third one here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to total up the two enthalpies. Sorry, let me just use this cell. Okay, so I'm going to total up, later I will add in these two. And I'm going to do the same thing with the third one. So I'm going to fill in the third enthalpy. I'm going to fill in the formula, and I'm going to try some temperature. Let's say 625. Maybe the answer is 400. This temperature is just to guess. That's the initial guess. So it's not accurate, it's okay. So I'm going to just link the cell to the first one, and I'm going to set up the energy balance here. Let me just try energy balance. In, out. So in, I'm going to add up these two. Out, it's going to be. So later you can fill in the formulas here, then you can see what happens. And I'm going to give a balance. And I use the definition in minus out. And what I do is I'm going to Goal Seek data, what if analysis, Goal Seek this cell to 0. Because an energy balance, no heat loss, no reaction and so on, the energy balance is inlet equal to outlet. So inlet equal to outlet is the same thing as inlet minus outlet equal to 0, right? So I'm going to put 0 here. I'm going to change the outlet temperature. And then I run. So in this case, this answer is not correct because I didn't fill in the other blanks, but I should give you a hint on how to approach this problem. So you can see how Goal Seek can actually help you with mass balance. So I just use Goal Seek, I can get the answer. For energy balance, I need to have some VBA or some other formula, but I can also solve the problem using Goal Seek. So this is how you use, this is a very simple introduction. I just mix two guess streams and I'll show you how Excel can be used for mass energy balance calculations. So I hope you like this, and if you have some free time, you might want to try it out when it's still hot, and you can tell me the answer later. What is the final temperature? So I'm going to tell you that this is not the correct temperature because I didn't fill in the other blank. So this is not the correct temperature. Don't be too happy. Oh, 98. No, 98 is not the correct temperature. Yeah? So temperature should be somewhere around 300 to 400. Yeah, the correct temperature. So please add me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect with you. If you have any questions, do drop me a message on LinkedIn. But just a few key takeaways before we go into the Q&A session. The first thing is that you can excel in chemical engineering in Excel. The name already tells you that. You can excel in chemical engineering in Excel, but you need to know how to use it properly. And one of the two tools is to use Goal Seek and Solver and to solve equations. Remember that in Goal Seek, the formula is just A equals to B by changing C. A equals to B by changing C. A, B, C, just three things. Yeah. And if you cannot solve your problems with Goal Seek and Solver, you go into VBA. VBA, there are 4 elements: variables, operators, functions, and sub-branching and loops. Just 4 elements. Don't think too much as a starting point. Just know how to use 4 elements. You can do a lot of things. If you want to be a computer scientist and so on, you can go into the details of VBA, because VBA is a full programming language. There are a lot of things that you can do. But just for engineering application, it's enough to know at least these 4 elements. Yeah. And that's all, folks, for me today. But my final question takeaway for you is don't wait. If you want to improve yourself throughout this COVID-19 pandemic, understand that it's a very difficult time. And my company is like thinking of, not hiring any new people. And it will be a more difficult job market after you graduate as compared to before the COVID pandemic. I hope you guys stay safe during this pandemic. I hope you guys stay okay. But if you want to take this opportunity to learn something new, to make yourself more marketable in the job market, you can start with learning VBA. It's very simple. And if you know this, you impress your interviewer, wow, you know something that other people don't have, and that gives you an advantage in the job market nowadays. Yeah, the job market is really challenging now. I'm not going to kid you. I'm not joking. So I hope all the best to you, and I'm open to your questions. So feel free to connect with me on Facebook, drop me an email, or even on LinkedIn. I'm happy to talk with you if you want to know more. So I think I'll pass back to you, Ms. Lianivia. Thank you very much
Okay,
for
sir.
listening. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your explanation. That is very clear, and I think we can understand what you mean. But I have some question from participants. They direct message to committer. The first one is from M. Praditya Ansar, Chemical Engineering, University of Lampung. First question is, how can we get the Master of VBA, and do you have a quiz book of this? If you have, please share the quiz book. And the second one is what's the difference between VBA and MATLAB?
Okay. Thank you, Yanni. Oh, that's a very long question with a very long answer. Okay. So the first question is, how do I learn VBA? How to master VBA? And what textbooks do you recommend for VBA, right? That's the question.
Yes, the great books. How can we get the Master of VBA, and do you have the guide book of this? If you have, please share the guide book.
All right, thank you for the question. Yeah, I think that's the question that everyone wants to ask. Actually, I think there's 100 people in the webinar. I think all of you will be interested to know the answer to this question. The first thing is that I don't use a book. I'm a Generation Y guy. I don't read books. I think books are boring. But of course, other people have different ways of learning. So my way of learning is actually I go to this website called Stack Exchange. Actually, my way of learning is, let me just go to my browser here. I'm sharing my screen, right? So what happens is that if I want to have a problem, I'm going to just search on Google. I'm very lazy, but it's very useful. So I'm searching Google and I say how to do if else in VBA, Excel. And there are actually a lot of answers here. So actually, this is the way that I learn. It's not very systematic. And I actually learn based on what the job application requires. For example, this is a Microsoft official website about how to use if-else statements. So, but if you want to have a more systematic way of learning, I actually recommend going on LinkedIn Learning. On LinkedIn Learning, there are many courses to learn Excel, VBA easily. So there's one course that I can't find, but there's one course that actually makes it very easy to learn because they give you like 1 week, one assignment, 5 minutes assignment. You just learn something 5 minutes, and then next week you learn something and something. But the problem with LinkedIn Learning is you need to pay money. I think it's like $20 per month, so it's quite expensive. Probably for me, for you, I'm not sure. But it's one way that I would recommend to learn on LinkedIn. And it's very guided, and you can ask them questions and they'll answer to you. If you want a book, textbook for learning Excel and VBA, I recommend the book Excel for Chemical Engineers. I recommend this book. I'm not sure if you can get it on Amazon or something. But let me just. I think this is the book that I meant. So this is one of the better ones, and it's not that expensive. So I'm not sure how you can get the ebook. Perhaps you can buy it on Amazon or something like that. But this is one of the better books that I can try. And the good thing is that it gives you a comparison between Excel, VBA, and MATLAB. So you can do the same thing in MATLAB. You can do the same thing in VBA, and then you can compare the answer, whether it's the same. If it's the same, then congratulations. If it's not the same, then something's wrong, and perhaps you should go back to your code and check out. So this is one of the simpler books that I recommend for this how to learn VBA and Excel easily for a student perhaps, or even for working people. It's actually a good way to learn also. Yeah. So I think you need the answer. Hope that answers the question from this person.
Okay. So as we see if we see the windows from the VBA and the MATLAB is similar, right? So what is difference between VBA and MATLAB?
Okay, what is different between VBA and MATLAB? Good question, right? I think MATLAB is something that you learn in a chemical engineering course, right? In most universities, even in University of Malaya, when I was a student, we learned MATLAB for calculations. So the main difference I would say is that MATLAB is designed for engineering applications. VBA is not designed for engineering applications. So that's the main difference. So, for example, in MATLAB, you have a matrix manipulation. In VBA, you can do matrix manipulation, but it's a bit more difficult because Excel is, after all, a program that is supposed to be, as I said in the earlier myth, it's supposed to be something used by accountants, statisticians, mathematicians, and so on. And it's not really designed for an engineering application in the first place. So that's why you don't have certain matrix manipulation calculations. For example, you want to calculate the determinant of a matrix and so on. It's not that easy. Excel does have certain matrix manipulation functions, and VBA also has that, but it's not straightforward compared to MATLAB. So that is the main difference that I see. The second is when you are solving PDE. Because in MATLAB, if you have toolkit, you can solve a partial differential equation. You just type in one formula, enter. You can get a partial differential equation solution. Excel, we don't have that because Excel is not designed for that kind of application. But for all other applications, I can say almost any application, MATLAB is the same as VBA, same functions, same applications. Just the way you type in is different. Maybe you have a bracket here. In MATLAB, you don't have a bracket. Maybe in MATLAB, you can type in, you need a semicolon. In VBA, you don't have a semicolon. So it's actually similar. But the good thing about VBA is that VBA is found inside Excel, right? And a lot of people in this room have Excel. Whereas MATLAB is more specialized software. Not everyone has MATLAB. My friends studying in, let's say, economics will not have MATLAB. Only engineering students mostly, or engineers will have MATLAB. So Excel is something that almost everyone in the world has, right? So you can code something in VBA and share with other people. For example, I can do thermodynamic calculation. I can share the sheet to someone else, and he can do it, continue from my calculations, which is something that MATLAB doesn't do that well, because that guy will need to have MATLAB as well if I want to share MATLAB code to the other person. So that's why I would say the main difference between VBA and MATLAB is that MATLAB is an engineering application. But on the other hand, Excel is something that more people have and is more common, so that it's easier to share between other people, and you don't have to have a license for MATLAB, for example. Like in University of Malaya, MATLAB is only available inside the computer, in the computer lab. So if I need to use MATLAB, I have to go to university, I have to go there, and it might not be convenient for me. Maybe it's like Saturday or Sunday, or it's after hours. But Excel is something that I can use any day, anytime I want. Yeah, so I hope that answers the question, Yanni.
Okay, so for the MATLAB and VBA and Excel is different application, right?
Yes, but they have the same function, I would say.
Okay, so if we want to get the VBA application, how we can get it? Just typing in the Google, or you have the link?
VBA is something inside Excel. So if you want to open VBA, you just open Excel. Everyone has it. Everyone, if you have Excel, you have the application. You just have to, let me just show you again. Click on Developer tab here, and then Visual Basic. Yeah, so everyone here, I can say everyone 100%, you have this VBA application. You just never opened it before, right? That's why. But that's a good question, I would say. Many people don't realize that it's actually very useful too. Yeah. Okay, thanks, Amy.
Okay, the third question from Ronald Perlindungan from University of Medan area. The question is how to utilize Excel in chemical engineering.
That's a good question. I think you have to rewatch my webinar again. But simple things is that you can use VBA to calculate heat capacity, enthalpy, density, viscosity, diffusion coefficient, mass transfer coefficient, heat transfer coefficient, convection, radiation. Basically, anything in chemical engineering, if it's a formula, you can write in VBA. That's my simple answer to that question. Because after all, VBA is just a programming language. It helps you to calculate something. And that something, as long as it's in the form of a formula, you can calculate. That's a simple answer to that question. Yeah, that would be my answer. Hope that answers the question, Jenny.
Okay, this is some question also from the chat. Is from Juliandri.
Yeah.
When we click the insert on VBA project, then show us 3 different types, such as user form, module, and class module. My question is, what are the difference and why you just use module? Thank you.
Thank you, Juliandri. Well, that's I think you have some background in programming, like to ask the kind of question. Yeah, that's a more difficult question. For most of you, will be very confusing. But I'm just going to go back to my VBA screen here, and I'm just going to show what Juliandri is showing. So I can right-click, insert, and there are 3 types here, right? So we have user form, module, and class module. So, and Juliandri is asking what's the difference between these 3, and why I just use module. Okay, so so the difference is that module is something that I can put some code inside, and I can share this code with other people. For example, I can click on example 5, right-click, export file, and I can save it somewhere, and I can send this file to another person. He can open the module, and he will have the code immediately inside his Excel. So now I have the code, he has the code. So this is a good way of sharing VBA code. And the module allows you to access the code from any sheet. For example, we have sheet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. But if I'm using the sheet to type in the code will only be available inside the sheet. So I try to, let's say, run in sheet 2, it will say formula not found. But if I run the code in the module, all the sheets can access this module. So all the sheets can access the same code. So that makes it very convenient and very easy. So what are the 2 other types here? The user form and class module. Okay, user form is something that allows the user to type in something. So I can create a window, and I can ask you to fill in temperature, pressure, then I click OK, then something comes up. So that is a user form. It's a more difficult answer for simple applications. I don't use user form, but my company, some people do use user form. So they can actually create their own app inside Excel. So inside Excel, you can see a window and type in temperature, pressure, okay, then density comes out, for example. So that is how you can actually create your own program inside Excel. So you can be a real programmer if you want. Class module allows you to define classes. So a class is a very object-oriented programming kind of concept. It's a more difficult concept, but if you want to know more, it's a way that allows you to define classes, subclasses, and you can access these classes inside the module. So a class module is actually similar to a module, except that there are certain other functions related to object-oriented programming, which is something that will take a very long time to cover, probably one whole day. So I'm not going to talk too much about it today. So I hope that answers your question, Julian. Yeah, Jenny, back to you.
Okay, there is the third one. The question. Oh no, still have 2 questions. The first, from Ronald Palindungan, from Dinas Perindak, Provinsi Sumut. The question is, what is percentage of the oxygen content in the air? Maybe maybe I think this means in example number 2, maybe about the oxygen content in process cleansing. I'm not sure, but maybe in the example number 2.
Okay, I can give you the example answer and the real answer. The real answer is that the oxygen content in air will differ depending on where you are. The air in Malaysia might differ from Indonesia, and the United States might differ. But the range is around 20.5 to 21%. So in this example, I just use a simple 21% just to make it easy for you to calculate. But in real life, the air oxygen content will differ, and air will actually contain more gases. You have water, CO2, you have argon, you have rare gases, you have nitrogen, and so on. So this is just a simple example to make it easy for you to calculate. Don't treat this as a real project. in my real project for a gas turbine, we calculate more accurately, of course. This is just an example to guide you on the basics of VBA. So indeed, just to answer you, the question is that I put 21 more percent and 79 more percent in nitrogen. That's how I choose the air composition. I hope that answers the question, Roland.
Okay, the last one. This from Richard Adi Wicaksono from Polytechnic Negeri Lampung. The question is, can we do this all commands in latest version of Visual Basic? Example VB 2019. If no, what the version should we use to do this command?
Thank you for the question, Richard. That's a good question also. I would like to just clarify that VBA is Visual Basic for application, and Visual Basic is another different programming language. Yeah, so don't get confused. Visual Basic for application (VBA) is different from Visual Basic. Oh, I don't know why they put these names. You have to ask Microsoft why they invented such similar names. But Visual Basic is used for Windows application. For example, I want to make Internet Explorer. I will use Visual Basic to write the whole Internet Explorer program inside Visual Basic. And you are correct to say that Visual Basic has different versions. Some versions are newer, older, and if you want to know more about Visual Basic, you have to go to Microsoft's website. They'll update what's the latest version. But just to clarify, we are now discussing Visual Basic for application, VBA. And VBA, the version of VBA you use, depends on the Excel or Office version that you have. So for example, I'm showing Excel 2016. The VBA will be based on 2016. So the version based on the Microsoft Office version that you install. And there are some changes, but I can say that VBA is a language that has very few changes throughout the version. If you compare with Python or C++ or other programming languages or Java, every version has a very big change. So if I write some code in Python version 1, I go to Python version 2, maybe it cannot run. But for VBA, I can say with very high confidence that the changes are very, very small. And all the examples that I showed today, your VBA will work in any application. It will actually probably work even if you go back to Excel 1997, 1995, it will still work. So I can assure you on that. Yeah, so don't worry too much about the versions. For VBA, the version changes is very, very small and usually not important. I hope that answers your question, Richard.
Okay. I think that's all, sir, for the question. And you are so well to explanation. And you answer very well and very clear, I think.
Thank you very much.
And thank you so much for your time in this webinar. And I think the conclusion we can use the application VBA in our computer using and we already have in the Excel application. And when we can use the VBA is for the repetitive text, complicated text, and interactive text, and then for the Visual Basic for application or VBA is derived from Visual Basic, integrate into Microsoft Office application, allow for user-defined function, and object-oriented programming language. And I think if we use this VBA and Excel simulation, it makes us easier. If we have a lot of data or a lot of some sample we need to calculate, it makes us easier and can minimize our time and more efficient, I think. Right.
You're correct, Jenny. Okay, in order to invite you guys to connect with me on LinkedIn and Facebook and drop me an email if you want to know more. Yeah, thank you very much, Jenny, for the nice conclusion.
Committer. Wait. Wait, sir. I think something wrong. Uh, okay, maybe I just closing this webinar. I'm not sure what's wrong with them. So thank you all for all participants in this webinar. I'm so happy you are have time to listening in this webinar, and thank you so much for Mr. Wei Jian. Yeah, right. We are so happy you can give some material in this webinar, and thank you so much. And we hope we can see next time.
Sure.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you to all the participants for spending your Saturday morning, which probably many people will be on holiday or doing whatever you want to do, but you are actually in this class listening to it. Yeah, so I congratulate you and thank you very much for joining.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Please, Komite, Panitia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rahwejan and Mrs. Yeni Riawe MSc. Finally, we come to the end of this event. To close this event, let's reciting Hamdalah. Alhamdulillah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your participation and your nice attention. If in guiding this event, I made mistakes or often someone here, please forgive me. Okay, thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Santi Santi Om. Baik untuk para peserta, diharapkan untuk mengisi link feedback yang akan kami berikan dari panitia, yang nantinya link feedback tersebut digunakan untuk penginputan atau pembuatan sertifikat. Jadi kiranya mohon diisi link feedback tersebut. Link feedback akan kami berikan di kolom chat Google Meet ataupun di grup dari webinar yang telah kami buat. Ada 3 grup webinar. Terima kasih. Please, to all audience, turn on your camera because we want to documentation. And also Mr. Tehwijan.
Yeah, perfect. Let's see. Okay.
Capture. Okay, thank you for attention. Maybe enough. And see you to the next webinar in Himatekin Polytechnic Negeri Lampung. Okay, goodbye. Goodbye.